Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We've got quite a bit to get into today in the Leeds United news show. We've got a number of topics. We're going to start off obviously by talking about the internationals and how it has gone on for Leeds United football. So Joe Rodon's been playing and getting man of the match awards. I told he didn't play back that bad against England. Let's talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk about the link to Zieliński and how that's sort of developing. And finally, we're going to talk a bit about a finance expert who works for GVR Media and TBR Media, who are both basically talking about the latest situation with Leeds United's financial reports. And actually, he points to the fact that Leeds should be able to spend in the January transfer window, and maybe they haven't spent all the money available in the PSR window this season. So quite exciting news actually there, because we know the 49ers like to max it out every single year, and Robbie Evans said in the summer that he will max it out. So if they are going to max it out, there might be a possibility that they've got to do something in the January transfer window to get to a maximisation. So we'll talk a bit about that. Freshly squeezed Deefy says, evening to you too, mate. But yeah, let's start with the first story, shall we? And let's start with a positive update, I think, overall, which is about Wales last night and sort of what happened with the Wales national team. Obviously, unfortunately, Wales did lose both their games this sort of international break. However, the positive news of all of this is Joe Rodon, again, fantastic for Wales. He's been fantastic for Leeds United. It didn't change when he went on to duty with Wales. And of course, it's important that when these players, that our players, go on international duty, they do perform well. Not just because of we want them to do well for the country, but mainly because we want to keep that form up of what they've done for Leeds United so far. The fact that Joe Rodon managed to get Man of the Match award in the England game, not in terms of the whole Man of the Match, but for Wales, I think it gets voted on after. He got Man of the Match for that, and he got Man of the Match last night. Yes, they conceded 7 goals, but actually, he was pretty good in both games from all accounts. As I said, Man of the Match in both, and that is a huge positive. And I think, obviously, Ampadu, I think, struggled at times. Darlow, for me, couldn't have done much for the goals, but when you're conceding 7 goals, probably there is some blame there, potentially. But I want to focus more and talk a bit about Joe Rodon in general, really, because the guy's just fantastic, isn't it? Like, he's just truly fantastic at this moment in time. And I look at sort of what he lacked, I think, in the Championship. Like, one of the things with Joe Rodon that I've always liked is the fact that he never makes mistakes. He just doesn't make mistakes at all in a defensive capacity. I think the only mistake I can remember him making was when we played, I can't remember played at home, but he gave away a stupid penalty, and I think Melia saved it. It might have been Swansea at home. It might have been last year. That is the only real defensive mistake I can remember him making. He never makes defensive errors. But what we've seen this year, added to his game, is the physicality. The physicality has been massive for Joe Rodon this year, and we've seen such an upgrade for me in his physical setting and his ability to even, I think he looks even a tad quicker, but also we've seen from corners especially, I think this is where you see it more when you're watching as a fan and you're not just watching individuals, but we've seen on corners how much more threatening he's been. Yes, he's obviously scored this year. Yes, he scored for Wales last night, but it's not just about that. It's about on every single delivery now. He looks such a threat in the penalty area. And when you look at sort of what I think Joe Rodon didn't offer in the Championship of all his great defensive work, I think it was that attacking threat from set pieces. I always thought that was an issue. You saw the difference for me in the Championship, especially between how good Strout was from set pieces, attacking set pieces that is, and how good Joe Rodon is. I think it's pretty level at this moment in time. I think they're both pretty good from set pieces, and that is a huge upgrade for Joe Rodon and a massive credit to him, and probably working his physicality. His jump looks better than ever, but he also looks much more dominant in the box as well, actually beating people and sort of bullying people in the box, which is what we should have seen. Because bearing in mind, I've always been really confused with Joe Rodon and his aerial ability, because he's always been so good at defending set pieces. I've never quite understood why you can't attack them. I know it's a different technique in terms of you trying to direct it when you try and attacking naturally because you're aiming at a goal, whereas when you're defending naturally you're trying to head it out. But I do think you've seen development for sure in his physical setting, 100%. Even, as I said, he even looks really fast for a centre-back now as well. He's no slouch for a centre-back at all, and it's just fantastic. And you look at everything that he brings to you. I think he brings leadership. I think he brings passion for the game, but he's a player as well that plays every single minute. He has been a superb signing for Leeds United, and he's genuinely took to the Premier League season like a duck to water. And now you've seen he's probably Wales' best player now. Ben Davies comes to the end of his career. Aaron Ramsey's no longer there. Bale's no longer there. He's probably Wales' best player. And I don't think it'll be that long until he's probably Wales' captain. And to be honest with you, I think he could be Leeds United captain. I think he's got them credentials in him, and the way he plays and the mannerisms he plays with suggests to me he's got captain written all over him. Obviously, Ampadu's done a fantastic job, so I won't be moving the captaincy armband on. But I think the leadership skills are quite clearly there. Run is Leeds through and through. It gives their all for the badge every time. He clearly cares for the club. I 100% agree, because obviously he had that season, didn't he, when he came on loan for us the first season, and then he ended up staying for the second season, and he actually had Premier League offers. I think he had Ipswich in there. There was a few clubs. I think Brentford might have been around as well, and he chose to come back to Leeds United because he said he'd found his home at Leeds United, and I think you've seen that. I think you've seen him develop as a player, but also develop off the pitch as well. He looks just more calm, and he looks happier in himself. I think he genuinely has found his home at Leeds United, and I don't think he's a player. If unfortunately the worst case scenario happens and Leeds United did fall down the league, I don't think he'd be someone that jumped ship at all. I'd be very surprised. So yeah, it's fantastic that what we've seen from Joe Rodon and his development in all of his games since joining Leeds United has been a testament to how good he is. But he's so, as I said, the best thing you can say about Joe Rodon, he's so consistent. Not only, as I said, defensive really, really well, he never ever gets injured. I think he's going to get the street in it for the most ever played outfield player at Leeds United as well. That's coming up as well. So I just wanted to do a mention of how fantastic he's been. He's calm because of Millier's out. That is true. That is true. Flesh is squeezed. That is definitely true. But, yeah, I just wanted to do a segment on Joe Rodon. Yes, Ampadu's not had the best time, and I don't think Darlow's having amazing times, but it's nice to see Joe Rodon having a really good time at Wales. And it's also nice to see as well the Welsh support getting behind the idea that Joe Rodon, because he's a fan favourite at Wales now for sure. So, yeah, really good news regarding that and Joe Rodon international break, so well done to him. Let's move on to Brendan Aronson then. And this is quite interesting, actually, with Brendan Aronson at the moment in time. So, obviously, Brendan Aronson played against Ecuador, or he didn't play. He was actually on the bench and was an unused sub against Ecuador in their first game. But what I find really interesting about Brendan Aronson, the reason I wanted to talk about him, is not because I think they've got a game tonight. I don't think he's probably going to play in that. He might do. But what's more interesting is he's playing at 2 p.m. this evening, Joe Rodon. So by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, he will have played it, as I said, 2 p.m. So if you want to stay up and watch him, crack on. I don't think I will, but you know you can. But what's interesting about this is he plays at 2 p.m. this evening, which means so we're already on Tuesday. He's going to be playing on Wednesday morning. He's then got to fly back to England, so that'll be Thursday. Then he won't really have had a proper training session on Friday, you wouldn't expect. So he'll just do a bit of prep work. Is he going to be able to start for the Burnley game? Is he going to be able to start? No one's talked about this. Usually with Daniel Farke, we've seen him. I remember seeing this with Rafinha as well. When he had them later games and the games came in the international break came later, you never saw him come straight back into the team because you don't have time to do your tactical work. You don't have time to get match sharp. You don't have time to do training sessions where they work on tactical plans, obviously with the opposition. So when you've got a fit Wilfred Gnonto there, is there a situation where actually this international break, because he's gone away with the USA, is he actually not going to be a feature for Leeds United in the game against Burnley? Which I know people might clamour about, because I know there's obviously a contest in the fan base that wanting me not to play. I'm in that fan base. I don't want him to be in the starting 11. I would like to have him, though. I would like to have him as an option to bring off the bench or to help see out a game. I think he does offer stuff. I just don't think he should be starting. But I think it's really interesting that when we look at sort of what Wilfred Gnonto could offer us instead of Brendan Aronson, I think one of the main things that he probably can offer us is actually the fact, of course, that he will have been involved in tactical meetings. He'll have been involved in the match plans and preparation for the game. And he obviously won't be jet lagged either because he hasn't gone away with international duty because he's just coming back from an injury. So that's really interesting news about Brendan Aronson. And it's actually the same. Not that one. It's actually the same with this man as well, Ayo Tanaka, who obviously played this morning, so it's a bit later on. They actually played a fantastic game for Tanaka. He came on the bench in around the 74th minute, and he actually was obviously involved in the team that beat Brazil under Carlo Ancelotti 3-2. So Japan beat Brazil actually later this evening, and Tanaka came off the bench. But again, Tanaka's flying back in from Japan, it'll be. So, I mean, he's got what? A huge plane ride to go. It's miles away, is Japan. Then he's got to get back in the team. For me, Tanaka is not going to start against Burnley. I think when you've already got Stack, Longstaff, and Ampadu, who I think already Daniel Farke won't want to drop them three. I think they're his three favourites in my opinion. So I don't expect Tanaka to come in. But I think the more interesting one is with Aronson. But it's good that Tanaka's been involved in such high-level games, like obviously Japan versus Brazil, where actually Japan have got the win over the line there. So positive news in a sense, but unfortunately, I don't think Tanaka, like with Aronson, potentially will be ready to start for the Burnley game. And I think with Aronson, the other thing I will say is he does come across to me as a bit of a Farke favourite. I think because he's such a hard worker in training, naturally Farke gets on with that, and he can learn sort of Farke's quite complicated system, which we know he has. So I think there is a potential that Aronson starts over Tanaka, but I don't. For me, if I was to guess, I actually think that potentially both of them could miss the game, which could be quite interesting to see how obviously he gets on. But yeah, let's move on to the next player then, and we'll talk a bit about Gudmundsson. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Apparently, he's not done that well for Sweden, but Sweden are all over the place at the moment in time. John Dahl Tomassen's just been sacked today as Sweden manager, and they've had an awful campaign. Obviously, a lot of been highlighted on Isak and Gyökeres, who've not really worked as a pair up top, but from all accounts, Gudmundsson's not had 2 good games. I don't want to talk too much about Gudmundsson though, because truth is, we ain't really got a better left back than him at all. He's going to start no matter what, so, you know, it is what it is. But that's the case with Gudmundsson. Anyway, let's move on quickly through Zieliński, because there is actually an update there as well. So reports from Corriere dello Sport this morning suggested that Leeds are showing interest in Zieliński. We've talked about this on the channel before, but the new update is that actually they're reporting the fee will be around 8.7 million for Zieliński. So I think that's quite expensive considering he's 31 years old, of course. But the other report, which is quite interesting, says that he's actually on 140 grand a week. My opinion on Zieliński is this seems unlikely, this deal. I said at the time, I don't think Leeds United want to be spending near £9 million for a 31-year-old. I also don't think Leeds are going to pay 140 grand a week, although there was sort of mention in this report that actually he would drop his wages, which I think is obvious. I think he obviously is going to drop from that 140 grand a week. I just can't see this one personally. And if I'm looking at where we should allocate funds, when we are looking at a tight budget, I don't think we should be allocating funds, in my opinion, to another midfield player. I think the midfield balance of Ampadu, Stack and Tanaka, or Ampadu, Stack, Longstaff, or however you want to word it, them 4 and 3 of them playing is really good at this moment in time. I don't think we need to go and buy midfield players. As I said, the main position for me is that right wing position. That is where Leeds United need to target for sure, in my opinion. That is the weak spot. And I don't think Leeds United, when you've seen what we've done and where funds have gone and what age range that funds have gone at to, they haven't gone to 31-year-olds, and we're not paying big contracts out. So for me, Zieliński, you can probably write in the nonsense story, because remember, when a transfer forms or when a transfer story happens, there's a number of ways it can happen. It can be it's actually completely true. It can be that the player is looking for a new contract where he's at, which you see a lot of times. It can be that the player wants out the club and he's trying to spark up interest in him, because obviously if you link to Leeds United and say Leeds United are interested, naturally it sparks other clubs who might be interested in Zieliński to pop their ears going, wow, Leeds United are interested, we need to go in and make a formal offer for him. So there's a number of reasons why Leeds United get mentioned other than the fact that it's actually true. And I think in this case, I think Zieliński obviously is being told by who's he play for? Anyway, by Napoli that he needs to move on. Is it Napoli? No, it's Inter Milan, isn't it? By Inter Milan that he needs to move on and find a new club in January. So naturally his agent's doing what agents do, where he's basically going, oh, this club are interested in my player. This club are interested in my player, to spark up interest in his player so he gets a move in the January transfer window, which is obviously the aim of Inter Milan and probably Zieliński. That doesn't mean though that Leeds United are one of them clubs, because I don't think it is. I just think that's where we are at with the current situation. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. And we're going to have a look at, we haven't talked about Jacobiel, have we? We need to get back. We need to go back to the international thing. I knew we were missing a player. I knew we were. Anyway, let's go back and talk about Jacobiel. I knew we were missing a player today. Yeah, Jacobiel's an interesting one. Jacobiel is very interesting at this moment in time for Leeds United. I think, for a bit of context, he's played twice for Slovenia now, keeping 2 clean sheets. And they've actually played against 2 quite good teams. They've played against Switzerland, they've played against Kosovo, and you look at it and you think 2-0 0-0s there. Jacobiel played well in both. Even the Slovenian press talked about it. I think you can see reports online if you sort of want to look into it as well. But he has played well in the 2 games. Obviously, when we look at sort of international clubs and where the best international clubs are, I think actually Switzerland are one of the better teams probably in Europe at this moment in time. A lot of good players there. They're not having the greatest time. But keep a clean sheet against Switzerland is no mean feat. It's not like keeping a clean sheet against San Marino. And then he kept a clean sheet against Kosovo, who actually do score quite a few goals if you look back. They're not as good as I think they once were, but they're a decent side, Kosovo. So it was 2 solid clean sheets. And my opinion on sort of Jacobiel at this moment in time is This is the time for Yacobiol now. This is the time. If he's ever going to get into this Leeds United team, it's going to have to be now. Because I don't see another point when Yacobiol's going to make the implement into the team. He's played 2 games, he's played well in both. We've got a game against Burnley, a good game to bring him into, playing against the worst defence in the league. Maybe they're going to use a lot of long balls, which naturally would suit Yacobiol as well with his physicality that he offers. I actually think if Yacobiol is going to find his way back into the team, you've got to bring him in now. And for me, when you look at the Burnley game and look ahead, it's now or never for Yacobiol. He's got to come in for me. Because what is the point in spending this sort of money on Biel? Yes, I know Strout's done well, but I think his performances are starting to level off and not looking as good in recent weeks. So if there's any time that Yacobiol is going to start in a game, he's had, as I said, 2 good games for Slovenia now, played well, match sharp, clearly at a level where he can perform at a good level since he's played well against Switzerland, etc. It's now or never of him. And I've even seen the Slovenian coach come out and said that, look, what has Biel got to do to get into this team now? 2 good displays, he's got to find a way in. And I would tend to agree with him. I do think we should be bringing Biel into the 11 at this moment in time. I think that's the play. For me. So yeah, that is the end of the internationals anyway. And we've obviously got Zieliński halfway through it because I moved on too quick. Anyway, let's move on to the next story, which is something that might spike all your guys' ears, which is a financial sort of expert, a football financial expert called Adam Williams, not the usual Kieran Maguire like we usually reference, but Adam Williams, who has suggested that actually Leeds do potentially have some capacity to make moves in January, and he doesn't think that actually Leeds United have hit the PSR threshold for this year yet, which obviously would give Leeds United wiggle room in January. But where do I lie on this? What do I think about this? I don't think there's much truth in this, I've got to be honest. I think there's truth in that we've probably got some wiggle room. We know we're bidding for Harry Wilson, so if that was because we're going to do sales in January or sales before obviously July the 1st, potentially. But I think there is potentially some wiggle room for us to do something in January. I think that would make sense to leave yourself so you know where you're short in January and you can go and obviously buy certain players that you need in the January transfer window. But I don't think we've got a lot of wiggle room at all. If you look at sort of logically where we are with the financial account, naturally in the summer, of course, the newly promoted clubs for the first time ever got less than the rest of the Premier League clubs. Leeds have been in the Championship 2 of the last 3 years, so we get the spend of a 2 Championship year spend plus a 1 year Premier League spend, so you get less than the rest of the Premier League. We've spent a net spend of £100 million. We haven't done a lot of incomings or outgoings either. There isn't going to be a lot of money to work with naturally. If you look logically at this, for me, it's quite obvious for me that we're not going to have a lot of PSR wiggle room to get through. So if I'm looking at it sort of with any sort of sense, for me, it looks like Leeds are probably going to have maybe 10 million quid if I'm picking a number out. I don't think Leeds United are going to be able to do a 50 million spend unless there's serious sales go out. Obviously, there's likes of Nonta who's been linked. We've mentioned on this channel potentially you could look at Stroke moving on if Biel finds his way into this Leeds United team on a consistent basis, and you think, well, actually, do want to have a PSR player sat there collecting dust almost while we're playing somebody else. So I think them 2 players potentially could look at moving on, and then you could probably fund transfers there. But do I think Leeds United have got loads of wiggle room? I don't. I honestly don't. I think we're probably touch and go right now at this moment in time with PSR, and I think we are probably struggling at this moment in time with PSR. I don't think we've got... if you ask any financial specialist, we don't have the wiggle room that Sunderland has. You even saw Robbie Evans quote this at the start of the season as well, when he obviously did his wrap-up of the transfer window and where Leeds United were at in the transfer window. So yeah, my opinion is that, yes, I think probably Leeds do have a bit of wiggle room. I won't be getting your hopes up, though, thinking Leeds United are going to do a spending spree in January, because truthfully, I don't think it's going to happen. Robbie Evans also obviously mentioned in the summer that Leeds United are not looking to do loads of deals in January. Obviously, I think part of that was when he said it, and I said it at the time, was that Robbie Evans was trying to dampen expectations, because I think when you look at what Leeds United did as a PR team in the summer and a media team, I think they sent out all the wrong messaging in the summer. And I think the reason there was such backlash on the transfer window was because we got sold the world. And then when we only got Europe and we didn't get South America, North America, and the rest of the continents, we went, well, actually, that's a bit crap because you told us that we're going to spend every penny and we thought that was more. So I think to be honest with you, yeah, I think that's why Robbie Evans said what he said. Freshly Squeezed says, you deserve more than a handful of people watching. Have you thought about maybe reaching out to some of the established creators to maybe do some collabs? they might give you more exposure. I have thought about that, mate. But the problem is that because I'm so small, naturally, I don't have a lot to offer them. So I'd like to get a bit bigger, and then I could offer them. But if you guys want to sort of, I don't know, mention in the comments that that you quite like my content or something, maybe that would cause it. I don't. Yeah, like the likes. I know there's obviously really good channels in this fan base. The likes of The View, One Leeds, etc. Just Joe as well does a fantastic job. Naturally, me with my 1,000 subscribers doesn't have a load to offer them, so it makes it tricky in that sense. But I appreciate the comment, I really do. We never really have any idea of the physical position until the end of the season books. No, we don't, but I think you can make an educated guess, Mr. Whitesnake, on where Leeds United are at this moment in time, and sort of logically, if this is how much you get for being in the Premier League, this is how much you get to lose because of obviously PSR, what naturally things cost. I think you can make a bit of an idea of where Leeds United are at, and I don't think we look like we're a club with loads and loads of money, if I'm being totally honest. I would replace Fark with a number. I would replace Fark with his number 2 and keep the backroom staff. Okay. Is this in terms of yesterday's video where we talked about Fark? I'm not sure what you mean, PSF. You've said to read your comments a bit slower sometimes, but I did try read it a bit slower there. I don't really get that. I don't even know his number 2 is, to be honest. I probably should do, but I don't. But yeah, okay, fair enough. The other thing that I want to mention as well, which again I haven't seen mentioned by other people, is that we've got a real not a transfer boost, but we've got actually a real match boost coming up for Leeds United. Because we've seen this before, but actually, I was looking at the fixture list and how they're all playing out. And obviously, we know, this weekend we play Burnley at 3 p.m. on the Saturday. And of course, Mr. Whitesix, I dream of 1,000 subscribers. Oh yeah, I'm amazed at where I'm at after such a short period of time. I mean, I've only been doing this a few months, so I'm amazed that I've managed to get to this point. But and I appreciate all of you. But in terms of like Just Joe's and The Views and One Leeds, etc., these guys have got 50 times what I've got, so it's a tricky one. Is number 2 the guy with the stash? I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. But anyway, what I was going to say is that, so obviously Leeds play Burnley this weekend on Saturday, and then the next game we play is against West Ham. And the West Ham game, if people that don't know, is actually a Friday night fixture. We play West Ham, not this Friday coming up, but the Friday after. But what's interesting actually is that West Ham play Monday. They're on Monday Night Football, and they're also Friday Night Football. I think that's a real boost for Leeds United. You know, we've seen this before with Leeds when we get our sort of fixture list moved in the Championship a lot. Like I remember when we were chasing promotion, I think in the first season. In fact, I'm sure it was the first season, and we had 2 fixtures moved. One to Monday night. I think we played Borough away, and then we had the QPR game, if you remember, moved to Friday night, and we just didn't recover in time, and we were awful. And we got beat 4-0. I mean, there was a number of problems in that game. It wasn't just that we didn't have a lot of time, but we know full well playing Monday to Friday is a very much different to playing Saturday to Friday. So I look at sort of where Leeds United are at this moment in time and think that's not bad. West Ham having to play 2 games before we play 1 is good news. That is really good news. Obviously, they've got to travel up to Leeds as well, so they're not going to get much time on the training pitch. If you look, play Monday night. Tuesday naturally will be a rest session because that's how it works for them. Wednesday, they might have a bit of time on the training ground. And Thursday, they're probably travelling up to Leeds to stay over at Leeds before they obviously play on the Friday. So we're going to have much more time to implement a tactical plan. And if I'm West Ham, I'm looking at that thinking, well, this is horrendous. In comparison, we're going to have 2 more days of rest going into that game over West Ham. It's a huge bonus. And I know this is probably because we're going a bit further ahead here, but I haven't seen anyone mention it. I thought we really do need to mention this because that is a huge boost. As I said, we've seen it at Leeds United when we've had our games moved, especially in the Championship. So West Ham, as I said, play this Monday and then they play the Friday. I wouldn't say I feel bad for them because we've had it done to us, but it's definitely not a bad thing. Mark Marston says, evening all. Evening to you, Mark. I hope you're having a fantastic evening. But yeah, otherwise, shall we leave it there anyway? Bits to talk about today, but I wanted to get through it. I didn't want to sort of waffle on naturally. But I do appreciate you guys all watching, of course. And I appreciate the kind words now, which the chat's been very nice to me tonight. So I appreciate that. I think with it, when you said that sort of I deserve more subscribers, it's just going to be time, hopefully. I think hopefully people enjoy what I do and hopefully it will start to build. But as I said, if someone said to me when he started 2 months ago that I'd be on 1,000 subscribers, I'd be blown away. I can't believe people care. So I do appreciate the support fully, for sure. But yeah, thanks all for watching as always. And I will be live. Let's have a look. I have a 90-second spot on Imagine Not Being Leeds programme late night Leeds. So anything is possible. I have a 90-second spot on Imagine Not Being Leeds programme, late night Leeds. So anything is possible. Yeah, congratulations, mate. Congratulations. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always. And I will be live again tomorrow at 8 p.m. So I'd stick around for that. And we'll have something more to get into. And of course, Thursday will be the big preview for the Burnley game as well. That will be a pre-record because I seem to like that format better and it seems to do it better as well. So we'll do that. But yeah, I'll see you all later, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow for some more Leeds United news. Thanks for listening.